The college football world is always changing, and part of that change is new teams moving up from the FCS to the FBS level, especially in the South. The last 15 years or so, we've seen some good teams move from the FCS to the FBS, teams like App State, Coastal Carolina, and recently even teams like Sam Houston State, James Madison, and Jacksonville State are three more schools that have moved up to the FBS after doing pretty solid in the southern part of the US. One school is in their first year at the FBS level in Conference USA though, and that's Kennesaw State. This is now one of 5 schools in the state of Georgia and 3 in the Atlanta metro area that are currently in the FBS, but this season has been a complete disaster for them and not really in the ways that you'd think. But why is that? For starters, we have to look at the season that the Owls are having. As of today, they are 1-8 on the year and don't have a shot to make the postseason. They're led by quarterback Davis Bryson, who's just 5'9" and 190 pounds, and he's thrown for 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a Conference USA leading 9 interceptions. Their offense leans on running backs Michael Benefield and Qua Ashley, who have 735 yards and 5 touchdowns between the two of them. As you can piece together from just that, they're not exactly having a good season on the offensive side of the football. They rank 129th out of 134th in terms of points scored per game with 17.1, and their defense isn't much better, ranking 112th out of 134 schools and allowing 32.4 points per game. A lot of the Owls' struggles this year because of the transition they're making from the FCS to the FBS level and the fact that they're the youngest team at the FBS. They started their football program as a member of the Big South Conference, and they play in the smallest stadium in the FBS at just over 10,000 seats. They're really just now starting out as a football program, and they're already at the FBS level. While this might seem like an indicator that their football program is pretty good, it's more of an indicator of what matters to conference realignment. But before we talk more about Kennesaw State today, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to quickly take a quick moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Kennesaw State football. In their history, Kennesaw State is 72-37 all the time, and they've made the FCS playoffs 4 times since their creation in 2013, with their first season being in 2015, and they have a 5-4 record there, as well as 3 Big South Conference titles in 2017, 2018, and 2021. All of this was done under one head coach, Brian Bohannon. Coach Bohannon is a Georgia native who had a lot of experience running the triple option style of offense before becoming the first and only head coach in Kennesaw State football history. He coached at the option powerhouse school Georgia Southern from 1997 to 2001, and then at Navy from 2002 to 2007, before coaching quarterbacks at Georgia Tech before their switch away from the option from 2008 to 2012. He took Kennesaw State to 6-5 in their first year, then 8-3, 12-2, 11-2, 11-3, 4-1 in 2020, and 11-2 again before the Owls would move to the Atlantic Sun for 1 year. KSU literally went from not existing to competing for FCS playoffs immediately under Coach Bohannon, and he did it while recruiting a roster from pretty much scratch. So why am I talking to you about Coach Bohannon? Well, Kennesaw State decided to shock their players and fans as they fired him this week in the middle of his first season at the FBS, and they didn't do it in a very good way. First, they said he was stepping down on his own, and then he had to come to the media and say he didn't step down on his own and was actually fired by Kennesaw State's athletic director, Milton Overton. It's a tremendously bad look for a program to fire the guy who built their program during the middle of a transition year with a team that, while it hasn't been successful, was just getting their bearings and having a football program. Never mind an FBS one. And their AD made it even worse, saying, quote, "Over the last 3 years, the results on the football field failed to support our goal of building a competitive FBS program. Therefore, I determined it was time to make a leadership change to take the football program in a new direction. I advised Coach Bohannon of my decision, and as it is customary, offered him the opportunity to announce that he had been stepping down. At the conclusion of our meeting, it was my understanding that Coach Bohannon had accepted my offer. While it is a bad move to fire your head coach in the first year of their competition in the FBS, Overton is claiming that Kennesaw State's performance had already been dropping before the season, which is true. In 2022, their first season in the Atlantic Sun Conference, Kennesaw State dipped to 5-6 on the season, the worst since the program started. It only got worse from there, as Kennesaw State announced it was going to be joining the Conference USA, and due to FCS rules, had become an independent. They went 3-6 as an independent in 2023, before moving up to Conference USA in 2024, and now they're 1-8. Weirdly enough, their one win was against Liberty, who was everyone's preseason favorite to win Conference USA and potentially get a playoff spot. The recent change in success from schools to jump from the FCS to the FBS might also be a reason why Kennesaw State decided to fire Coach Bohannon. The other 2 most recent FCS teams to join Conference USA did drastically better. Sam Houston State went 3-9 last season, but currently sits at 7-2. Jacksonville State, the other school who went 9-4 last season and even got to play in a bowl game, so far is already 6-3. James Madison, who joined the Sun Belt from the FCS in 2022, went 8-3 that year, then 11-2 the next season, and right now they're 7-2. FCS teams have just been making that transition cleaner than Kennesaw State did this season, but again, all of those programs are more established than Kennesaw is. Sam Houston State started their program in 1912, Jacksonville State started theirs in 1904, and James Madison started theirs in 1972. They had years to develop their football program, and while KSU was good from the start, they definitely didn't have their feet under them yet, so even with a lower level of success, firing Brian Bohannon was definitely a knee-jerk move, and one that'll immediately have negative effects on the program. One source I saw even had Kennesaw State's official NIL budget at just at $5,000, which is really low and basically nothing in today's era of NIL. For starters, Kennesaw State's interim head coach is Chandler Burks, who they just elevated this year to be their new offensive coordinator after he spent a few years as their quarterback's coach. He was part of a shift in offense away from the triple option and towards more of a traditional pistol style of offense in the hopes that it would work against FBS competition. He was the first ever commit to sign with Kennesaw State as a quarterback, and he's also just 28 years old, making him technically the youngest coach at Division I college football level. He's only been coaching in general for 4 years, and he's out of his league as a coach and is probably being set up to fail. I don't really see Kennesaw State having much more of a chance to win any remaining games on their schedule, and if they do win any, it'll be a miracle. Coach Bohannon's firing also created a huge mess for the Owls roster, as since his firing, they've already lost 12 players to the portal, and of those players, a lot are really impactful. Kwa Ashley hit the portal, taking a huge chunk of their offensive production with him, and other transfers include defensive lineman Tamarius Walker, 3-star West Florida edge rusher Jahan Myers, and defensive tackle Jalen Jarrett. On their way out, they went scorched earth on their AD. Former DB Taylor Hinkle said, quote, "This was a pretty erratic decision just to do it the day after a game. I completely disagree with it. I hate it for all the coaches, and I hate it for Coach Bohannon, and I hate it for the players." Another former player said, quote, "The way in which it was handled was nothing short of disrespectful to Coach Bohannon. We're talking about a guy that deserves a statue on this campus, not a guy that deserves a mid-season firing." Yet, another guy said, quote, "My personal belief is that resources have not been given to the university as a whole and the athletic department as a whole. The football office is still in an office warehouse complex, and it's bursting at the seams in capacity. There's a weight room, a coach's office, a meeting room, and then you drive a mile to Fifth Third Stadium for the locker room, and then you walk 3/4 of a mile over to the perch and practice. It doesn't really feel FBS football if you're trying to recruit." And this is the biggest reason why it's a huge disaster for Kennesaw State from top to bottom. Yes, Coach Bohannon has been struggling recently, and it isn't really competing that well compared to other FCS programs that made the jump, but KSU just isn't like those other programs. It sounds like they haven't even gotten any institutional support, with a bad stadium and bad facilities on top of a bad NIL budget. It's easy to look at them now and wonder how they ever got to be so good in the FCS in the first place, and it kinda is a miracle. It really was that Coach Bohannon was just that good of a coach who was able to build a program with a triple option and no talent. If he had gotten more support as he moved on, maybe he would have been able to keep the success that he had in the beginning, and instead, Kennesaw State's AD wanted to treat the program like it had existed for years and years instead of being so young and in Conference USA. And that's a little bit his fault too. Of course, any FCS program would likely jump at the opportunity to make more money than they currently are, and being so young, Kennesaw State would be stupid not to jump immediately. But Kennesaw State was likely just added due to their football success and proximity to the Atlanta market, giving Conference USA another stronghold in a southern state. They were added based on projection of what they could become, which they definitely haven't lived up to just yet, but it is only their first season. Sam Houston State went 3-9 in their first year, and they're just a few years removed from winning the FCS National Championship. And again, Kennesaw State doesn't really have any of that institutional support that Sam Houston does. Now they're losing players to the transfer portal fast, and it'll be next to impossible to recruit players there. Kennesaw State really should have at least kept Coach Bohannon through their second season at the FBS level, and then maybe you move in a new direction after that. Maybe they should have stayed with the traditional triple option for a couple of years, since it is more difficult to defend against, and it would have made good use of the players they already had on the roster. And maybe, based on these moves, they should have never hired this athletic director to begin with, considering the reaction of the players, staff, fans, and national media about the Owls AD. But what do you guys think? If you're a Kennesaw State fan, was this move stupid? And do you guys think the Owls even have a future in the FBS? Also, be sure to let me know what other topic, team, or program I should look at next. And before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.